welcome to Is Brian Hartline Leaving Ohio State for West Virginia edition of the OHIO podcast. By now, you know the drill, folks. Hit that like button, that thumbs up button. That helps the channel out immensely. And if you're not subscribed, what are you doing, man? Free content doesn't cost you a dime. You a Buckeye fan or just a fan of college football? Go ahead and subscribe to the channel here. We appreciate having each and every single one of you. We are the official Ohio State podcast of Scarlet and Game. Head over to scarletandgame.com where you can read all kinds of great articles about Ohio State football, basketball, and other sports, and listen to our podcast. You can find us wherever you download your podcast. Just search the OHIO podcast. Give us a 5-star review if you don't mind. That does help out us getting into the earbuds of other fans just like yourself. And we're also the official Ohio State podcast of the College Huddle. Head over to thecollegehuddle.com where you can listen to us and 75 other great podcasts from coast to coast at thecollegehuddle.com. So it appeared West Virginia had found their guy. Ren Baker, the athletic director of West Virginia, it was expected that he was leaning back to the return of one Rich Rod to the old country roads there in Morgantown, West Virginia. But not so fast, my friends. A new name has emerged, having interviewed for the job, the vacant head coaching position in West Virginia, that being the highly respected recruiting wide receiver position coach from the Ohio State University, one Brian Hartline. I can't help but feel that this is a Gordon Gee, who is the president of West Virginia, his second term there. He also had 2 terms at Ohio State as president. That this isn't a Gordon Gee, I would say, request being made here to interview Brian Hartline. But I have some insights on that as well. But here's what I know so far. It appeared that Rich Rod was going to be named the head coach of West Virginia, and then all of a sudden a new name emerged, and the message boards both in Morgantown and Columbus, Ohio have been exploding because it appears that Brian Hartline would like to have the job as head coach at West Virginia. Will he be offered the position? That remains to be seen. I believe that Ren Baker has some things to think about, has some individuals to talk to, including the donors there at West Virginia. Who are they excited for? Will they be as excited about bringing in Brian Hartline as they would the Rich Rodriguez, who's beloved there in Morgantown, West Virginia? I would say right now, based off of the pulse of the fan base there at West Virginia, I would say that they're leaning more towards bringing Rich Rodriguez back to Morgantown than they would be bringing in what is perceived to be an inexperienced head coach in Brian Hartline. However, let's explore that a little bit here. So Brian Hartline received the OC position or co-OC position a couple years ago, and he never really was offensive coordinator. Some are saying he was demoted. He was not demoted as OC. That did not take place. One Ryan Day was unwilling to turn over the reins as play caller to Brian Hartline for several reasons. Number one, Brian Hartline had 0 experience as play caller, and Ryan Day didn't trust him. Those are the facts. Ryan Day has mentioned on several occasions that he needed to have someone in place as play caller that he trusted before he would turn over those reins. Insert Bill O'Brien, who was there for a couple weeks, and a lot of people were excited about him, having called plays at both Alabama and for the New England Patriots, had head coaching experience both in the NFL and in college football. But then he exits stage left in a couple weeks, heads out to the East Coast of Boston College, where he can be the head coach there. In comes Chip Kelly, which we all know was Ryan Day's mentor, the guy who coached Ryan Day when he was a youngster, the guy who's brought Ryan Day through the coaching ranks both in college and into the NFL. And Ryan Day turned over the play calling to him. And so even though Brian Hartline does have the co-OC label attached to his name as also the wide receiver coach or position coach at Ohio State as wide receiver coach, he never got the opportunity to become a play caller. Now, has he been learning? I'm sure he's been learning from both Ryan Day and Chip Kelly. However, I would say I'm not sure how much you learned from that debacle that took place. I guess it's been 11 days ago now in Columbus, Ohio, when they lost for a fourth consecutive time to our bitter rivals from Ann Arbor. So at this point, I think you can read between the lines, and there's a few things going on here. Number one, the players were not happy with Ryan Day. I think that is self-evident by the fact that there was a players-only meeting with just Ryan Day, where there was questions asked that what was going on with the play calling, what was going on with the game plan against that team from up north, and Ryan Day had to look those players in the face and try to answer those questions. He was then asked by the media, does he believe he's the man for this job? In which he skirted that question uh, worse than a politician. I mean, it was terrible. It was absolute the worst press conference I've seen from Ryan Day. And now I have to wonder if he's also possibly losing some of this coaching staff as well. He's probably already lost the confidence in the players. He's definitely lost the confidence in the beat. He's lost the confidence in at least 66% of this fan base that we know of for a fact based off the polls we've ran here at the OHIO podcast. And it appears maybe he's lost some of the confidence in his own coaching staff. Earlier this season, we know that Ryan Day had issues with Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson getting on the same page when it came to rotations on the defensive line. Those seem to be taken care of for the most part up until this last game against the team up north. And um, that was just another signal, if you will, that something's going on behind the scenes that's not healthy over at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. And now you see your best recruiter, and there's no doubt that absolutely Brian Hartline is the best recruiter on this coaching staff. That's hands down, undisputed. Everybody knows it. Ohio State's had some pretty good recruiting classes in the last, 5 years, most of which have been propped up, let's be honest, have been propped up by the fact that Brian Hartline's going out there and grabbing multiple five-star guys, okay? Where some position coaches are getting one, some are getting none. He's getting multiple five-star guys consistently to bolster his room each and every single year. No one has put more first-round draft picks from their position into the NFL at Ohio State in the last 5 years than Brian Hartline has. So not only is he a good recruiter, but he's also developing his room better than anybody else currently at Ohio State. Okay. Now, did that constitute him being able to call plays as offensive coordinator? Apparently not in Ryan Day's eyes. And I think Brian Hartline might be a little bit fed up with that. As far as the fan base is concerned, there's many people here in the Ohio State fan base who view Brian Hartline as a possible future head coach, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad idea. Look, you don't have to be a coordinator to be a good head coach, and good head coaches sometimes aren't great coordinators. All right, case in point, Ryan Day. I think he's a great offensive coordinator. I really do. I believe he was a fantastic offensive coordinator. I think he's been a pretty much a lousy head coach when it comes to what matters here at Ohio State, and that's beating your rival, winning championships. And he hasn't been able to do any of that with his own guys. He did it in 2019. He won the Big Ten in 2019. But let's be honest, that was still Urban Meyer's roster. Everybody knows that. Again, that's undisputed. No one argues that point. As we've gotten further away from Urban Meyer and we've adapted more of what I will call Ryan Day's culture, Ohio State has continued to decline, while those teams around us who we are competing against, and including now Oregon from the West Coast, have gotten better. And that's not a good thing. And so if you've lost the confidence of your players and you've lost the confidence of your fan base and in the media, and now maybe even the coaching staff, I am not surprised one bit that Brian Hartline has interviewed for this job in West Virginia. Do I believe Brian Hartline would make a good head coach? I do. I do. And here's why. I think he relates well to today's players. He knows how to develop players. He knows how to recruit the heck out of players. And all those things are program building or roster building things that you have to do as a head coach. Where Brian Hartline, I think, needs to improve would probably be in uh, in money fundraising. He hasn't had to do it a whole bunch at Ohio State. He's done a little bit, and he's done a good job at it, but he's not been asked to be the face of that type of situation. He's never been the face of a program, which is what the head coach is. Brian Hartline, I think, absolutely could do that. He's a good interview. He does really well behind the microphone as well. So one could argue better than Ryan Day has done, obviously. So I think he would do great with that. The one thing he lacks is being an offensive coordinator. He's not been a coordinator. Even though he's got the title, he's not done it. But he's not been trusted to do it. So we have no idea whether he would be good or bad. There's a report out there that when he was given the opportunity to call plays, it didn't go so well in spring game and in some 7-on-7 and some practice and some scrimmages before the season in 2023, and that was one of the reasons why Ryan Day decided he couldn't trust Brian Hartline to move up to the booth to be the play caller. Well, let me push back on that for just a second. If you've watched the last 2 years at Ohio State, you've watched them play, the offense has regressed. Now, one could argue when you lose C.J. Stroud, who is a generational quarterback, might be the best quarterback to ever play at Ohio State, you expect to regress a little bit. However, there's been no adaptation from this offense to emphasize the positives and the strengths of this team while trying to mitigate the weaknesses. In fact, it seems more and more often our weaknesses are what are shining through consistently. And so, whether it was Ryan Day in 2023 or Chip Kelly here in 2024, the offense has not been as effective as it was in 2022 and before. And so I present to you that maybe Ryan Day needed to let Brian Hartline learn on the job in 2023. And maybe we would be in a better situation here in 2024 as a in a play calling and an offensive situation than where we currently sit. Number two, I think Brian Hartline absolutely was frustrated with what took place 11 days ago in Columbus, Ohio. He recruits the best talent that is on this roster, and you never even throw him the football in the second half. Talking about All American freshman wide receiver Jeremiah Smith. How in the world you do not look his way one single time in the entire second half of that football game boggles my mind. Do you think Ryan Day or do you think Brian Hartline had to take questions from Jeremiah Smith on coach? Why didn't they throw me the ball? Absolutely. I think Brian Hartline was frustrated in that. And so when the phone rings and says, "Hey, this is Ren Baker, the athletic director from West Virginia. Would you be interested in driving down the country roads over here to Morgantown from Columbus, Ohio, and interviewing for the head coaching position?" I think Brian Hartline probably looked at the last 10 days, looked at the last couple years under Ryan Day, and said, "Yeah, I think I'll take that interview." Now, did he interview well enough to get the job? I don't know yet. Do I believe he's going to get the job? I'm leaning towards no. And I think that the pressure of the fan base to bring Rich Rodriguez back to Morgantown is what's going to win the day here. But but for Ohio State fans, let it be known right now, get ready for the day that you hear that Brian Hartline is not with the program anymore. He's gone elsewhere because you don't have this much interest that he has had over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. Cincinnati, Florida State, now West Virginia, and a handful of other programs who've dialed him up. You don't get that kind of interest without someone eventually taking that opportunity to give him a head coaching position. And that as that frustration builds from him after all the great work he's done, and to see it not be used properly by the offensive coaching staff and the head coach at Ohio State, I think Brian Hartline will take his talents elsewhere if we're not careful. So I just kind of want to forewarn everybody that is where we are at. Now, we'll see what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours as news continues to come out of Morgantown. In fact, by the time this thing posts, within a couple hours, they may have already made a decision. But very interesting to note that right before they made that decision, they made one more phone call, and it happened to be to Columbus, Ohio, to Brian Hartline. Again, I still think that has maybe some Gordon Gee influence here, maybe, but would Brian Hartline work in West Virginia? I know this much. I think he would do a lot better job than what they've done recently because he'll recruit and he'll put the right people around him to be a successful head coach. And if that's the case, I think you're going to see a lot of Ohio State fans even angrier at what is taking place at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center under the direction of Ryan Day. Like, share, subscribe. It does help the channel immensely, and we appreciate all of you who have subscribed. It's absolutely free, doesn't cost you a dime, and the least you can do is hit the thumbs up button so that that helps the algorithm. The other thing that's going to help is you commenting below in the comments below. Let me know what you think of my take here. Do you think Brian Hartline is going to go to West Virginia? As an Ohio State fan, would you be upset to see him leave and take the head coaching position in Morgantown? If you're a West Virginia fan, would you love to see that? What do you think about Brian Hartline? Who do you want? Would you rather see Hartline, or would you rather see or would you rather see your old coach come back and Rich Rodriguez? Let me know in the comments section below. Until next time, guys, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH and sing Carmen High with all your heart. Go Bucks.